Welcome to ScaleUp Radio Shorts. I'm Kevin Brent.
And I'm Louise Blunt. We are the originators of Smart 90, and we're thrilled to have you with us today.
This podcast is brought to you by Smart 90, the proven 90-day execution system for scaling businesses. Today is a special episode. It's our monthly theme episode where we highlight an important aspect of scaling up drawn straight from our entrepreneurial scale-up system.
That's right, Kevin. And this month we are diving deep into a topic that sounds deceptively simple, but is actually the secret weapon of high-performing teams. We are talking about the checklist advantage and how disciplined simplicity unlocks scalable growth.
Absolutely. It's a concept that is deeply rooted in aviation, which is an environment where checklists are simply not optional. People often assume checklists are only used for takeoff and landing, but they're actually woven into absolutely every aspect of flying. Pilots have routine checks conducted during flight, event-based checks for things like joining the circuit or flying aerobatics, and of course, emergency checklists for things like engine fires or a loss of power.
And the crucial thing to understand here is why they exist. They are not there because pilots are forgetful. They are there because flying an aircraft is inherently complex. While checklists certainly help prevent memory failure, their real power is that they free up the pilot's brain to actually focus on what matters most.
Exactly. Imagine an engine failure. In that terrifying moment, a pilot does not want to waste their cognitive capacity trying to remember which switch to flip or which gauge to look at first. The checklist removes that massive burden, provides a structure, and ensures the critical steps are taken calmly and correctly. This creates thinking space, freeing the pilot's brain to focus on bigger priorities like flying the aircraft safely, choosing a landing site, and communicating with air traffic control.
When you started flying, Kevin, you noticed something really counterintuitive about this, didn't you?
I did. I noticed that the more experienced the pilot was, the more disciplined they were about actually using the checklist. There was no ego involved and absolutely no assumption that their experience alone was enough to get them through. It was just about calm, structured execution.
And that exact experience heavily influenced how we designed the entrepreneurial scale-up system, didn't it? Scaling a business is incredibly similar to flying an aircraft. As you scale, you are managing increasing complexity, you are making decisions under immense pressure, and you are balancing multiple systems simultaneously. And as that complexity increases, so does your risk. That's exactly why we named our benchmarking tool the in-flight checks.
Complexity really is the real enemy here. Atul Gawande wrote a fantastic book called The Checklist Manifesto, where he demonstrates how something as simple as a surgical checklist dramatically reduced mortality rates across hospitals all over the world. The breakthrough wasn't some flashy new technology, more training, or superior intelligence. It was simply disciplined consistency.
Gawande's core insight was that modern environments are just too complex to rely purely on memory and individual brilliance. In high-stakes settings, omission is actually much more dangerous than ignorance, and we see the exact same thing apply to scale-up businesses.
Spot on. For most business owners don't fail because they lack knowledge. They fail because the absolute basics are not executed consistently. The right conversations fail to happen at the right time. The numbers aren't reviewed with enough discipline, or recruitment standards start to slip under pressure. Cash forecasting becomes a reactive exercise rather than a planned one, and marketing activity drifts from being a habit to just running on hope.
Scaling rarely collapses because of one massive, dramatic mistake. Instead, it slowly erodes because of small, repeated omissions. Checklists prevent that erosion. As your business grows from just a handful of people to 20, 40, or even beyond, the sheer volume of decisions multiplies rapidly. If your leadership team is constantly trying to remember what needs checking or confirming, their mental bandwidth becomes totally consumed by operational noise.
And that brings us to a major pushback we often get. A common objection I hear from founders is that checklists feel restrictive, or they worry that putting them in place will introduce bureaucracy and stifle innovation.
But in reality, the exact opposite is true. Routine discipline is what actually creates creative freedom. Going back to the aviation analogy, routine in-flight checks ensure the aircraft is stable. Because of that guaranteed stability, the pilot is completely free to think strategically about weather systems, airspace, and mission objectives. Without structure, your attention is constantly dragged back down into uncertainty.
Identical in business, when your cash reviews happen predictably, when your onboarding follows a clear structure, and when your KPIs are visible and reviewed consistently, your leadership team is freed from that low-level anxiety. So because they aren't bogged down in chaos, they can think about growth, they can innovate, and they can explore new markets. Chaos suffocates creativity, but creativity thrives on stable foundations.
So, the checklist advantage isn't about rigidity, it's about freeing the brain for higher value thinking. Let's break down how this practically applies to the four pillars of scale up success within the entrepreneurial scale up system: strategy, people, execution, and cash.
Let's start with strategy. Strategically, drift can be very subtle. A quarter passes, priorities start to blur, and meetings turn into mere updates rather than places for actual decisions. Teams get busy, but they lose alignment. Without a structured review cadence, your momentum quietly dissipates.
We actually explored this in depth on ScaleUp Radio episode 147, talking about the in-flight checks. We discussed the importance of shared responsibility, very much like the pilot and co-pilot model, where one reads the checklist and the other performs the action and both confirm. That shared discipline reduces your blind spots and increases accountability. When leadership teams build a rhythm of reviewing their 90-day priorities and reassessing their competitive positioning, they create strategic calm. They aren't reacting to turbulence, they are just routinely scanning their instruments.
Moving to the people pillar, the impact is just as powerful. Think of Louise Hampton of Attend to Health. She implemented structured opening and closing procedures for her clinics. These were not glamorous initiatives, but they were operational disciplines that reduced onboarding friction and allowed new staff to integrate seamlessly.
Or Paddy White of Virtual Diamond, who built documented workflows for onboarding and recurring tasks. That allowed clients to experience a much faster time to value, and the team could scale without descending into chaos. These are the business equivalents of routine flight checks. They remove unnecessary mental strain and create incredible reliability.
And in the execution pillar, process clarity directly drives performance. Liz Graney of Escape, the village uses onboarding audits that function almost like checklists to guarantee their marketing foundations are in place. Small behavioral prompts like routinely requesting reviews turn sporadic effort into a solid habit.
We also saw Laura Evans of Susie Pancakes document a 12-step process to guarantee product quality, which ensured that customer delight could be replicated safely at scale. And Mensahib Lounge developed zero-waste routines to embed their culture through structured practice. Execution excellence isn't about intensity, it's about rhythm.
Finally, we have the cash pillar. Cash is the fuel of the business. In aviation, you don't just check your fuel before takeoff and hope for the best. You monitor it constantly throughout the entire journey.
Exactly. In business, late debtor reviews or unchecked cost creep will quietly erode your stability. Structured financial reviews protect your leadership's bandwidth. When cash visibility is high, decision-making improves, but when it's low, anxiety increases and creativity shrinks. Routine financial checks are confidence builders, not administrative chores.
To bring this all together, we can use the aviation framework as a mental model. You need three types of checklists: routine, event, and emergency. Routine checklists protect your daily stability, like your weekly KPI reviews or monthly financial meetings. Event-based checklists protect your transitions, like a major new hire or a product launch.
And emergency checklists protect your clarity under pressure. If there's a sudden revenue loss or an operational breakdown, predefined sequences prevent panic from overwhelming your judgment. The absolute worst time to try and invent your response is during the crisis itself. Preparation isn't about control, it's about cognitive freedom.
So how do we embed the checklist advantage? The in-flight checks were designed to create these structured conversations across strategy, people, execution, and cash. They're a recurring discipline, not just a one-off diagnostic. As a business grows from a few people to over 20, what once lived inside the founder's head must become visible, repeatable, and reviewable.
It's a shift from heroic leadership to systemic leadership. It's about replacing a reliance on memory with a reliance on rhythm. If you dedicate just 90 minutes this month to strengthening your checklist advantage, start by asking your leadership team, where are we relying on memory? Where do mistakes repeat?
From there, design short prompts, not massive manuals that reduce risk and embed that rhythm. Integrate them into your Smart 90 planning. Keep them short, keep them alive, and refine them over time. The calmest cockpits are calm because discipline is embedded, freeing the pilots to focus on what matters. The checklist advantage creates clarity in complexity, stability in growth, and freedom through discipline. Before you climb to the next level, run the checks.
Such great advice, Kevin. Thank you to everyone for tuning into this monthly theme episode of ScaleUp Radio Shorts. Remember, you can find out more about how our system can help you to create this disciplined rhythm by visiting smart90.co.uk. And if you'd like a free copy of the booklet we discussed today covering the checklist advantage, you can request it by emailing Kevin directly at kevin@smart90.co.uk. That's smart90.co.uk.
If you're tired of ending the week busy but no further forward, Smart 90 might be for you. It's a simple 90-day execution rhythm with an AI alignment check that keeps your daily focus tied to what actually matters. Try it free at smart90.co.uk.